Rain poured down over the broken field as smoke curled from burned alien machines. The war had left deep scars on the land, but deeper ones on the hearts of those who survived. Somewhere between the wreckage and silence stood a lone human soldier, wiping dirt from his cheek and scanning the horizon. His name was Rail. He wasn't supposed to be there. His unit had fallen back. But something had pulled him forward, a feeling he couldn't explain. Then he saw her. She was curled near the wreckage of an alien pod, shivering not from fear but from the coldness of defeat. Her skin shimmered a faint purple under the smoke-clouded sky. Her golden eyes glowed faintly, not in threat but in sorrow. Rail stepped closer. The alien girl flinched but didn't move. She looked ready to accept whatever came next. A soldier might have aimed his weapon. Rail didn't. He dropped his gun and raised his hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. She looked at him surprised. Most humans feared her kind. Her race was blamed for the spread of misfortune, and legends claimed that wherever she walked, disasters followed. They called her cursed. They believed her touch brought ruin. But Rail didn't believe in curses. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Vera." A crack of thunder rolled across the sky. Rail looked up and then reached out his coat. "You're freezing." She stared. No one had ever offered her warmth before. She was used to being avoided, hated or hunted. Slowly she took the coat. Her hands trembled. "They'll come looking for me," she said softly. Rail nodded. "Let them." That night they sheltered inside the ruins of an old bunker. Vera didn't sleep. She watched the human with silent curiosity. He was unlike the others. When she asked why he helped her, he simply replied, "You look tired of being hated." She didn't know how to answer that. Morning came with a strange peace. Birds returned to the trees, and the wind carried the smell of wet earth instead, of fire. It was the first time Vera had seen a day begin without something going wrong. "I think your curse broke," Rail said with a grin. She looked at her hands. Maybe it never existed, but others weren't so forgiving. Drones flew overhead, scanning the area. Rail pulled Vera behind cover. Moments later, a transmission came through his communicator. "Unknown energy signature detected. Investigate and terminate." He switched it off. "They're after you," he told her. She didn't argue. She knew how it always ended. People tried to kill her before anything could go wrong, but this time it was different. Rail didn't run from her. He stood with her. "We're going to leave this valley," he said. "I know a place where they won't find you." Vera frowned. "Why would you risk that?" "Because you've been blamed long enough. And I've seen enough war to know what real evil looks like. You're not it." A silence hung in the air. Vera didn't trust easily, but this human's voice sounded different, strong but kind, broken but not bitter. She nodded. As they moved through the forest paths, the land seemed to respond. Flowers bloomed. Streams flowed. Rail noticed it. "You sure you're cursed?" he asked. Vera smiled faintly. "I think you're changing my luck." They continued walking, unaware that satellite eyes were already locked on their trail. But neither of them cared in that moment. For the first time, Vera felt seen not as a danger, but as someone worth saving. And Rail, who had lost everything in the war, found a reason to protect again. Something had begun between them. Not romance, not yet. But something warmer than fear, stronger than myth hope. Vera followed Rail through the thick forest. Every step felt strange, not because of the ground or the leaves brushing against her arms, but because nothing had gone wrong. No branch snapped beneath her, no animals fled in fear, no sudden fire or broken trees. For the first time, she didn't feel like disaster, walking. Rail checked the path ahead. He moved like someone who had seen too many traps in his life. His eyes searched every shadow. But when he looked back at her, they softened. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I don't understand this." "What?" "This piece. I've never walked anywhere without something falling apart. Rael shrugged. Maybe I'm just good luck. Vera looked at him. Or maybe I'm not cursed. He smiled and kept moving. Behind them, distant drones buzzed in the sky. The forest kept them hidden for now, but they couldn't stay forever. Afternoon. They reached an old outpost buried in the roots of a mountain. Rusted panels and faded symbols showed it was once used by both alien and human forces. Rael punched in a code. The doors opened slowly. This place hasn't been used in years, he said, but it has power and a signal jammer. Inside, it was dusty but safe. Lights flickered weakly overhead. Vera stepped in carefully, waiting for something to go wrong. Nothing did. They settled into the outpost. Rael scavenged some old supplies. Vera sat quietly on the edge of a bench, her fingers curled around a small pendant that hung from her neck. It was all she had left of her people. My mother gave this to me, she said. Rael looked up. What happened to her? She died because of me, Vera said. Her voice was flat, but her eyes held weight. A storm came the night I was born. Lightning hit our home. People said I brought the sky's anger. Rael didn't say anything at first. He just sat beside her. Storms happen, he finally said. People look for someone to blame. That doesn't mean it was your fault. Vera looked down. But it kept happening. Everywhere I went, someone got hurt. Something burned. Someone died. Even my own kind feared me. Rael leaned back. Maybe you didn't bring bad luck. Maybe you just arrived where it already existed. She stared at him. Then why is nothing happening now? Rael glanced around. Maybe because this is the first time someone stayed. That made her go silent. Night came fast in the mountains. The outpost lights dimmed. Rael set up motion detectors outside while Vera rested. She watched the stars from a small window, wondering if her people were watching her from far away, wondering if they hated her or just feared her. Suddenly, a yow, soft sound echoed in the distance. Rael grabbed his old rifle and moved to the door. Wait, Vera said, rising quickly. He motioned her to stay. Just a scan. Stay inside. He stepped out into the cold night, scanning the trees with a small flashlight. Minutes passed. The forest was quiet. But then something moved fast in the dark. Not a drone, not human. He raised his rifle, but it was too late. A shadow leapt at him. He hit the ground hard. The breath knocked from his chest. Vera heard it and ran out, ignoring the fear building in her chest. Her hands glowed faintly with golden energy. For once, she didn't try to hide it. The creature, a wild hunter drone, left from the old war, screeched as it tried to crush Rael's chest, but Vera didn't let it. She raised her hands and unleashed a silent wave of light. It wasn't fire. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else. The machine froze mid-air, its systems blinking, then shut down completely. Rael coughed and looked up. What did you do? Vera's eyes were wide. I don't know. I've never done that before. He slowly got up, breathing hard. Well, I think your luck just changed. Or maybe it was never luck at all. She looked at her hands. For the first time, they didn't look cursed. They looked powerful. Vera sat alone in the dim light of the outpost, staring at her hands. The energy that came from her was still fresh in her memory. Golden light had burst from her palms, stopping the hunter drone cold. She hadn't meant to do it. She didn't even know she could. Rael returned after checking the area. He had bruises on his shoulder but was alive. He placed a hand on the table beside her and sat down with a quiet grunt. You saved me, he said. That wasn't just luck. That was power. Vera looked at him. Then why was I never able to use it before? Maybe you never had a reason strong enough, Rael replied. They sat in silence. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the air was heavy with questions. I always thought I was cursed, she whispered. Rael leaned back in his seat. Maybe that's what they wanted you to believe. Makes it easier to control someone if they think they're broken. Vera looked at him carefully. You speak like you've been controlled too. He nodded slowly. The army gave me orders. Fight, burn, move forward. I followed them. I thought I was saving people. But we caused pain too. She frowned. Is that why you left them? I didn't leave, he said. They left me. My squad was wiped out by a mistake. Friendly fire, they called it. I called it betrayal. That explained the sadness in his eyes. They were the same kind of lost. Two beings blamed for things they couldn't control. Two souls walking in the aftermath of others' decisions. Later that night, Rail pulled out a small data pad and began scanning through old reports. There's a resistance camp not far from here, he said. They take in outcasts. Might be our best shot. Vera hesitated. Will they accept me? I don't know, he said honestly, but we won't find out sitting here. The next morning they left the outpost. The mountains stretched out like sleeping giants, cold and quiet. They traveled carefully, avoiding patrols and broken bridges. Vera stayed close. The more time she spent with Rael, the more something began to change in her. She started to smile. It was small at first, when he made a joke. When he slipped on a rock and blamed the mountain. When a butterfly landed on her shoulder and nothing exploded. She laughed. You're smiling, Rael said, surprised. Vera touched her lips. I didn't mean to. Well, do it more, he said. It suits you better than fear. But peace didn't last long. That night, as they made camp by a frozen stream, Rael noticed a blinking red light on his scanner. They found us, he muttered. How? Vera asked, standing. I don't know. Maybe the drone you stopped sent a signal before it died. Or maybe they've been tracking me this whole time. Vera's glow returned. Then we run? Rael shook his head. No time. We make a stand. He handed her a small shock blade. Can you fight? She held it and something inside her stirred. I can learn. The ground rumbled as dropships neared. Lights cut through the trees. Shadows moved fast between trunks. Rael raised his rifle. Vera took a deep breath. The first soldier came out of the trees, gun raised, armor shining. But before he could speak, the sky cracked open. Vera's power returned, brighter and sharper. Her hands sparked like stars. She didn't attack with rage. She moved with purpose. Her light struck like a shield, knocking the soldiers back but not killing them. Rael fired as backup, keeping them from surrounding her. Together they held and by the time the soldiers retreated, the trees were lit by the morning sun again. Smoke curled in the air, but they were still standing. Rael looked at Vera, breathing heavy. That was amazing. She wiped her brow. That wasn't a curse. That was me. He smiled. Good. Because I think the galaxy just saw what you really are. The forest smelled of ash. Trees were scorched at the edges, but still standing. Birds had returned to the sky, circling high above the ground where a battle had just ended. Rael and Vera sat near the stream, catching their breath. The air was quiet again, but their hearts still beat fast. Rael winced as he pressed a cloth to a cut on his arm. Vera knelt beside him and took over. You're bleeding too much, she said. I've bled worse, he joked. She didn't smile. Rael watched her, the calm strength in her hands, the way her golden eyes no longer looked afraid. Something had changed in her. She had stopped running. She had fought not just to survive, but to protect. You were powerful back there, he said. The way you stood, it felt like something ancient woke up. I don't know what it was, she said softly. It came from deep inside, like it had been waiting for the right moment. Rael looked into the trees. You're not just a cursed girl. You're something much bigger. They were wrong about you. Vera didn't respond. She wasn't sure what she was yet. But for the first time, she wanted to find out. They moved quickly after sunrise. The resistance camp was still days away, and now their location was exposed. Rael plotted new paths through the old satellite maps. Vera stayed alert, sensing small changes in the wind and air, like she had become part of the land itself. As they reached a rocky canyon, Rail stopped suddenly. A small object had been planted in the sand. A signal tag. Fresh. Someone's nearby, he said. Vera stepped forward and picked it up. She closed her eyes. The light inside her hummed quietly. Then she opened her eyes. They're not enemies, she whispered. But they're afraid. Rail frowned. You can feel that? I think I can now. They moved carefully into the canyon. Soon, shapes began to appear between the rocks. Thin, cloaked figures, not human, not fully alien either. Hybrids, outcasts, survivors of both sides. Their eyes glowed softly, weapons low but ready. Rail raised his hands. We're not enemies. A tall figure stepped forward. Her face was scarred, but her voice was calm. You brought the cursed one here, she said, pointing at Vera. Vera lowered her gaze. Rail stepped in front of her. She's not cursed. She saved my life twice. She fought off hunters, stopped soldiers, and never hurt a single innocent. The woman stared at him. You don't understand. We've heard the stories. Wherever she goes, destruction follows. Rail shook his head. Then you haven't seen the truth. The woman turned to Vera. Prove it. Help us. Vera raised her eyes. How? There's a sickness in the valley, the woman said. It's spreading through the water. Our people are dying, no cure, no hope. Rail looked at Vera. Can you sense it? She stepped forward, walked to a shallow pool nearby and dipped her fingers in the water. Her light flickered again. This time it wasn't fire or force. It was soft and warm, like the forest's breath. Suddenly the water shimmered. Dark threads faded into clear blue. The pool glowed for a moment, then returned to stillness. The woman gasped. You healed it. Vera pulled back her hand. I didn't know I could. The others stepped forward slowly. Fear still hung in their eyes, but it was no longer strong enough to stop them. Rail turned to Vera. You're not a curse. You're a cure. Vera looked at the people gathering, some crying, some bowing. For the first time, she wasn't being feared. She was being followed, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. The small camp in the canyon had changed overnight. Once filled with fear and whispers, it was now buzzing with quiet awe. People who had avoided Vera before were now bringing her food, asking her questions, even smiling. Children peeked at her from behind tents, curious instead of scared. Vera stood at the edge of the stream she had healed, watching it flow like a gentle river of light. The sickness was gone. Her touch had cleansed it. But inside, she still wrestled with doubt. What if it doesn't last? She asked Rail, who was sharpening a blade nearby. He looked up. Then we'll fix it again. You're not alone anymore. She gave a soft nod, but her fingers clenched the edges of her cloak. Something was still stirring deep inside her. The power had grown stronger since she had used it. But she didn't understand it fully. And it scared her. Later, the leader of the outcasts, the woman with the scarred face, invited Rail and Vera into the main tent. Maps were spread across the table, marked with red circles. The sickness wasn't natural, the woman said. It came from here. She pointed to a facility buried in the mountains, an old science base from the war, now controlled by a private human corporation, the kind that didn't care about borders or peace. They're testing alien weapons, she said, poisoning land and water to push people out. It's not just war anymore, it's control. Rail narrowed his eyes. And you want to stop them? We've tried. They have tech, drones, heat-seeking weapons. They don't miss. The woman looked at Vera. But maybe your curse is the key to our survival. Vera said nothing for a moment. Then she spoke. I'm not a weapon. No, the woman replied. You're something better. You're proof that we don't have to fear what's different. That night, Vera sat alone again, staring at her hands. She remembered the fear in people's eyes when she was a child, the way her family had stepped back from her, the way elders whispered and left food at her door without speaking. And now strangers were looking at her with hope. Rael approached quietly and sat beside her. "You're thinking too much again," he said. "I'm thinking about what comes next," she replied. Rael leaned back against a rock. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." "Do you really believe that?" "I wouldn't be here if I didn't." Vera looked up at the stars. They blinked gently like they were watching her. "What if I can't control this power?" she asked. "Then I'll remind you who you are," he said with a soft smile. The next morning, the camp prepared for the mission. Rael loaded old gear, while Vera focused on her breath. The outcast fighters moved carefully, afraid to hope too much. They traveled for 2 days, climbing sharp hills and avoiding drone patrols. On the third night, they reached the mountain base. It was buried deep in the rock, guarded by turrets and scanning towers. Electric fences pulsed with red energy. Rael studied the layout through binoculars. "We won't get close without being seen." Vera stepped forward. "Then I'll go first." Rael turned sharply. "No. Too dangerous." She met his gaze. "They already see me as a threat. Maybe it's time they're right." He hesitated. "You sure?" "No," she said honestly. "But I need to know what I really am." Rael gripped her shoulder. "Then I'm going with you." Side by side, they stepped out of the trees toward the gates. Spotlights found them. Instantly, sirens screamed. Guards raised weapons, but this time Vera didn't flinch. She raised her hands, and the mountain began to tremble. The mountain groaned beneath their feet. Dust slipped from the high ledges as the energy around Vera thickened. The guards at the gate froze, their weapons shaking in their hands. They had seen power before, but nothing like this. Vera's eyes glowed bright gold, and the air around her pulsed with invisible waves, but her face stayed calm. She didn't shout. She didn't rage. She walked forward as if the mountain itself made room for her. Rael stayed close beside her, gun lowered. He knew this wasn't a moment for bullets. This was something deeper, something that came from a place even science couldn't explain. The first guard fired. The energy blast flew toward them, but stopped inches from Vera. It shattered into sparks and vanished like dust in the wind. A second guard ran, yelling for reinforcements. Vera raised her hand slowly, and the gate to the facility groaned. Metal warped and bent without her touching it. The doors peeled open like soft bark, revealing the dark hall beyond. They stepped inside. Red alarms flashed. Automated drones launched from the ceiling. Rael lifted his rifle, but Vera lifted her hand again. The drones hovered in place, their lights blinking in confusion. One by one, they lowered gently to the ground and powered down. "Are you doing this?" Rael whispered. Vera nodded. "I think I'm connected to something here." They moved deeper through the base. Scientists and guards fled down side corridors. The whole facility shook like it was waking from a long sleep. They reached the control center. Inside were walls of glowing screens and a central pillar humming with energy. Rael approached one of the consoles. "These readings. This is alien tech. They've been experimenting with energy sources. They don't understand." Vera touched the pillar. It pulsed in response. Her mind filled with images, memories not her own, alien voices, broken cities, an ancient power locked away long ago to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. She staggered back. Rael caught her. "What did you see?" "This place. It was built over an ancient energy source. My kind once used it, but it was sealed. After a great war, these humans found it and started using it for weapons." Rael looked at the console. "That explains the sickness, the poisoned water, the storms. It was never you." Vera nodded slowly. "They woke something old, and it leaked into the world. I just happened to be nearby. That's why misfortune followed me." "Because you were close to the source," Rael said. and they blamed you for what they caused. She stepped forward again and placed both hands on the pillar. The glow brightened. The alarm stopped. All sounds inside the base went silent. Outside, the winds died. The clouds cleared. Rael stepped back and watched. Her body was surrounded by soft golden light now. Her long hair lifted gently as if touched by a breeze only she could feel. When she finally let go, the pillar dimmed. "It's done," she whispered. Rael looked around. "You shut it down?" "No. I returned it to sleep." She turned to him, tired but standing strong. "It won't hurt anyone again." Footsteps echoed, in the hall. The outcast fighters arrived, weapons ready, but they stopped when they saw the scene. No guards. No drones. Just peace. Rael stepped toward them. "The source is silenced. You can reclaim this place." The scarred woman nodded slowly. "What about her?" Vera looked at them all, waiting for fear. But this time there was only silence. Then one of the children who had followed the group stepped forward and held out a flower. Vera knelt and took it. The curse was broken, but her journey wasn't over yet. The mountain facility had gone quiet. No more sirens, no more weapons. Just wind passing through open halls and footsteps echoing down once feared corridors. The energy source had gone back to sleep, sealed by Vera's touch. The sickness it had caused faded from the valley. And the outcasts, once afraid, now stood taller. But Vera could feel it. This peace was only temporary. She stood near the control room's window, watching the sunrise. Golden light touched the valley below, making the earth shimmer like a painting. For the first time, the view looked beautiful to her. Rael came up beside her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yes. But something's still out there. This wasn't the end." He sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." Later that day, messages began coming through on old radio lines. The main military force, those who had built the research facility, had discovered what happened. Their report said the Cursed One had taken control. They were coming with reinforcements, not to stop the sickness but to reclaim their weapon. "They won't let this go," Rael said. "They've invested too much in this power." The leader of the outcasts looked at them both. "Then we'll defend it. With you, if you stay." Rael glanced at Vera. "That's your call?" Vera didn't hesitate. "I'm done running." The next 2 days were spent preparing defenses. Rael taught the fighters how to build traps, how to work with the mountain's natural defenses. Vera walked among the people, healing small wounds, strengthening hearts, calming fears. But each night she returned to the place where the energy source had been sealed. She would sit there with her eyes closed, feeling it pulse like a heartbeat, beneath the floor. She wasn't afraid of it now. She had touched it, quieted it, even bonded with it. But deep inside she knew she had only seen a fraction of its true power. On the 3rd day, the sky changed. Dark ships appeared on the horizon, cutting through the clouds like blades. They weren't here to talk. They had come to take. The outcasts stood on the mountain ridges, weapons ready. Rael stood at the center gate, rifle slung across his back. Vera stood beside him, calm and still. Her long cloak moved in the wind, her golden eyes shining with quiet fire. The first wave came fast, drop pods slamming into the ground, soldiers spilling out like metal insects. Rael shouted commands. Fighters moved into position. Explosions rocked the lower paths. Laser fire lit up the dark sky, but nothing could break their line. Then the second wave came. Tanks, drones, heavy machines. The mountain shook. One drone flew straight toward the core entrance. Vera stepped forward. Her hands lifted. Light formed between her palms, growing brighter. It wasn't just defense anymore, it was something ancient. Something that belonged to the stars. With one wave, the light surged forward like a silent wave, disabling drones mid-air, shorting out tanks, locking machines in place without a single scream. The soldiers hesitated. Fear returned to their eyes. Rael stood behind her, eyes wide. Vera, you're becoming something else. She nodded. I think I always was. Another round of enemy forces approached, more dangerous, more prepared. Vera turned to Rael. This next part, it might be too much, she said. I'm not leaving, he replied. She gave a small smile. Good, because I don't want to do this alone. Then, with power rising around her and the mountain glowing beneath their feet, Vera stepped forward into the next battle. This time, not to survive, but to end the war that cursed her people. The mountain burned with light, not from fire, but from something ancient awakening. Vera stood at the front, her golden glow spreading out like a living shield. The soldiers who had once stormed in, full of confidence, now hesitated. Their machines stopped responding. Their drones blinked uselessly in midair. She wasn't attacking them. She was unraveling their weapons, silently, perfectly. Rael stood at her side, watching in awe. His rifle hung forgotten on his back. He didn't need it now. Vera had become the wall between the innocent and the greedy. The invading commander shouted through a megaphone. You're a danger to the system. Stand down or we'll level this mountain. Vera's voice echoed clearly, no device needed. You already tried. You poisoned the land. You blamed me for what your machines did. You called me a curse. But I'm not the one bringing destruction. The wind rose behind her, lifting her hair, making the rocks vibrate beneath her feet. Energy shimmered around her fingers, but she stayed still. I don't want war, she said, but I won't let you hurt these people again. The commander gave the order. A dozen energy blasts fired from the sky. Vera raised her hands. The blasts didn't hit. They stopped in midair, twisted, and then gently dissolved into light. Then something even greater happened. From the valley below, others began to arrive. Survivors, outcasts, those who once hid from the world came out, drawn by the light. They stood behind Vera, hundreds of them, all silent, all watching. The army hesitated. Rael stepped forward now. His voice was sharp and calm. You said she was cursed, he called out. But look around. She healed your poison. She protected both sides. She never hurt anyone who didn't try to harm her first. Who's the real danger here? The soldiers looked at each other. Doubt spread like wildfire, and then, one by one, they lowered their weapons. The commander screamed, but no, one followed him. His own guards backed away. Vera took one slow step forward. Her power faded into calm light. You lost, she said softly, because you never understood that strength doesn't come from fear. The commander tried to run, but Rael caught him. The battle was over. No one cheered. There was no need. The silence was louder than any victory song. That evening the mountain was still. The air smelled like fresh earth and cold stone. Fires were lit, not for war, but for warmth. Vera stood on the ridge looking at the stars. Rael joined her, arms crossed. You changed everything, he said. She shook her head gently. No, you did. He smiled. We both did. Together, she turned to him, her voice quiet. For so long I believed I was cursed. I thought I brought ruin everywhere I went. You didn't, he said. You just walked through broken places and then you made them whole. Vera took a deep breath. The world felt different now. Lighter. What happens now? She asked. Rael looked out over the valley. We build. We teach them not to fear what they don't understand. We create something better than what was. Vera nodded, and for the first time in her life she smiled without fear. The curse was never real. But the hope she inspired, that was.